This conference will now be recorded.
Hello all, welcome back for another session on performance testing using NeoLoad. Let's quickly recap on what we had discussed in the previous session. So we looked at various aspects, it's just kind of introduction. Okay. So mainly we looked into the previous uh, batch, the project, the scripts that what we had developed, right? So there are like different scripts that we had developed, and all of these different scripts are has some association, right? um, so different, so as you can see here, there's associations, variables, different part that we have seen, right? Also this unauthenticated, authenticated types that we had seen. Sorry. And there is this population, and we will be like going through every part, and I was just casually showing like what we had done in the previous session. Also, we have seen something uh, from the result side, right? So all of these, so these many executions that we will do it, and then different results that we have done. Okay, fine. Anyways, so let's resume from yesterday's session. So we had started off by recording a simple workflow, right? So this workflow we have, this can be called as an unauthenticated workflow, right? So what is this unauthenticated workflow, right? So any transaction or any user actions, right, can be highly majorly divided into two groups. One is the transaction that has some kind of fun authorization, right, where there is some kind of authorization keys might get passed, or some kind of dynamic variables that also might get passed along with the transaction. So those transactions are called as authenticated, and these transaction needs to be handled differently. Whereas here what we had done is it's just a simple um, unauthenticated transactions, whereas these transactions doesn't depend on any other transactions, and it will just simply work without any development or enhancement. Okay. And we have just seen on this recording part, right? So by to start recording, we just have to click on this start recording button. Here we can see there is the user path name or the script name can be provided. Where this has to go, this can be selected here. And so which protocol we are going to work with, the web protocol. And there is this different clients. So these are the different web browsers that is available in my system that we have seen. And then and other settings, and by just simply clicking on OK, this will just um, invoke so whichever web browser that we select, or this web browser can also be called as a client. Okay, so this will just gets invoked, and then so whatever the traffic that goes in that specific session gets simply recorded in the as a part of the script. Okay, well, let's continue with some of the introduction, right? So there is going to be some kind of a uh, just introduction to performance testing, and then maybe new load, and then we will continue to work on some hands-on. Yes. Okay, so PT introduction. So what is this all about, right? Performance testing, this is for the beginners or the new folks that have joined. There are few folks. So it is to determine the performance of the application under load, right? So um, so there are n number of examples that we can uh, see it. Uh, the most popular one is like so this is for like Indian region, where many of them must have used IRCTC, right, or any other government based. websites. So what happens, especially this IRCTC, right? When during the Tatkal booking, or maybe during some special events, what happens? The entire web page, gets slowed down, and then either we book it, we don't get the tickets, or maybe the our account could be debited, but it would throw an error. Like, it goes into various levels of issues, and it is all due to performance, bottlenecks, performance related issue. Because at exactly at 11 o'clock, there's like hundreds of thousands of users are trying to access the system, because everybody wants to grab a ticket, a Tatkal ticket, right? So let's continue this, right? So why do we need performance testing in first place? So what is the purpose, right? So as I just said, right? So if we look at any business, right, nowadays, almost any business is, if that business is not on online, at least that business should be there on the social media presence. Okay, if that is not there, there is a high chance that it may not scale, it may not grow. How it may survive, but there is no major growth, right? So nowadays the industry revolves based on its online presence, right? So any business, it has some kind of, it needs some kind of online presence. And for that, um, so if we look at from the non-functional perspective, right, so performance is required, because it also in case if there is a business and that accepts digital payments, and you can order something, right? See, for example, let's say Domino's pizza, right? uh, Majority of their revenue comes from online, right? Because the ease of delivery, and maybe even some folks will just make an order online, and then they go dine there. And there's like various maybe the various benefits by making an order online. Maybe they can use coupons, or maybe some kind of uh, maybe offers could be there, so that's why they stick to some kind of online. So indirectly, online presence is required for any business to grow. And if that is, let's assume, if that business is kind of slow, and not so feasible, it indirectly, it just goes into loss of business. So if, for example, let's say, like, uh, we are going to buy something on Amazon, right? If that web page doesn't load, what would I do? I would probably go to its competitor, maybe Flipkart, or maybe vice versa, or some other e-commerce site, right? So uh, at least 99.9% uptime i- is required for such kind of online based businesses, right? So that they can maintain, they can serve the customers. At least if it is like as good as opening the store and then waiting for the customers, right? So if that is not even there, then it's a high chance that they will lose the customers, and they will lose that opportunity, right? So it's also adds to an opportunity cost. So it's a loss of business. Okay. Second is, it's faster the website and more the revenue. Okay. This highly applies for all these cosmetics related websites, like maybe Mac Cosmetics or Clinique, Nika, and many other businesses, right? Where it is like those businesses are, it's kind of it's so colorful, and they have to keep their web pages highly attractive. And so when such pages exist, it will go into a lot of performance related trouble. Okay, so it is very imperative for them to keep those web pages at least faster, and so that they can gather more revenue on that. And of course, this is a another a vital, super important part where it is like so it addresses various aspects about performance. So it is performance is not just about how quick the website is, or maybe how the system is behaving. It is there is also other aspects, right? So how scalable the system can be, right? So maybe year on year how many users are coming to their system, because if scalability if the scalability is addressed, or if it is not addressed, then the business cannot really grow, right? But in case if the business can scale um, to a certain level, right, they can easily grow, so bigger revenue, and they can serve a majority, they can capture more market, right? So scalability and how stable their system could be, right? So the best example that we can take is Amazon, right? If we can see it, there is hundreds of millions of orders every second that they get, and s- and their system is highly reliable, and it is it is robust, right? Highly integrated. Fine. So let's look at a simple example, right? So as I was just saying about this Max Cosmetics, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Okay, it is something related to the makeup or beauty, all of those things. Okay, so I'm just opening up the dev tool as well. Let me just refresh. Okay, reload, and I'm just going to minimize this. So if you see, I'm on a decent 50 MB connection. It's a broadband. Okay, but for the page to load, it took quite amount of time. So as you can see, it took around almost 15 seconds, maybe a little bit more than that, just above that. Okay, why it took so long, right? As we can see, right, it is like uh, too much images here, and it is so colorful. There's a lot of XHR calls, and see this, right? So all this adds to a lot of complexity to the web page, and this is a such a heavyweight pages. As you can see here, this has downloaded almost 13 MB of information, right? So every time if the client is trying to load such kind of heavy weighted applications, right, this is going to take a long lot of time, because every time it has to download something around this. There are similar websites also. Okay, let's just explore that as well. Unique. So I will just a moment. So clinic is again another type of makeup related cosmetic site. As you can see, right, even this has downloaded somewhere close to 10 megabytes, and yeah, it is so colorful, and they have to showcase a lot of their products. There is this mega navs, banners, um, right? So much. It's a lot of images. Oh, sorry, I have just clicked on some product, I guess. Let me go back. Yeah, it is still okay. This time it has. So how do they keep up such web pages, right? So there would be like a number of uh, different types of uh, what do I say, options they would have kept it, like something called as like lazy loading and many other features they would have used it, so that they can serve something up, maybe a partially loaded pages to their clients or customers, and then they would show something else, right? But as you can see, right, if this is their main business, and if this is creating a huge part of their revenue, this has to be quick, and most of it has to be planned, carefully planned, right? Else they are going to lose to their competitors, most probably. Yes, fine. So we'll just quickly look at different types of performance. So there is this let's say like a kind of ambiguity, right? So when we say performance testing, a large part of the new folks or the beginners will think like it is one type of testing, right? It is not. Under performance testing, based on the requirement, right? The performance testing itself differs. So there are different types of performance testing. So let's look at it. So we are not going to deep dive into it for now. We'll just it's just kind of an introduction to it. Later we will be as we progress with the course, and then when we are designing the scenario, we will be like deep diving into it and then try to set different types of forms. So the first most commonly used or seen type is this load test. Load test is almost synonymous to performance testing, right? If some client says like let's do a performance testing, directly or indirectly they are just referring to this load test, right? So it is just means application under peak user load. Okay, there are other types. So there is another thing is stress test, where it is like application under future expected load, or this we can also say like stressing the system until uh, the application breaks, right? It is like kind of a finding different uh, uh, the top. And there is this soak test. Okay, soak test is it is used to determine the stability, as just we have seen, right? um, so it is it this use has to do with the endurance of the application. Okay, and there is a smoke test. This is more like a kind of a warm up or a kind of validation test. And there is a spike test, and this is like kind of simulating a sudden jump in the user load, like so the best example what I would say is, okay, this reminds me of another incident that happened like maybe like 1.5 2 years back. I mean this pre-pandemic time. So this I think what is this movie? It's Endgame. Yes, Avengers Endgame got released, and then there was this tickets were about to open, and Book My Show crashed because of the kind of user loads that it received, and it couldn't handle, right? Because everybody wants to book their ticket, and at midnight it got like around 12 it got crashed. Even we were like trying to book our tickets, but even though we booked the ticket, the following day we got a message from Book My Show saying like, okay, your ticket got cancelled. It looked it. So what we got to know later is the same tickets got delivered to different folks. Like so if let's say like if I have booked one ticket, the same thing has been delivered to five other person also. So it is kind of a duplicate orders that they have got it. So they had to cancel that and again make it available. So by the time when we received the message and when we checked it online, we it was booked already by somebody else, right? So This kind of issues also predominant with with the different kinds of business. And I think even Flipkart runs something like maybe some product, you can maybe some new phone is getting released, and you will be able to book it after 12 o'clock. Or maybe even this recent sales, whenever they run a sale, they would probably say like the sale goes live at 12 o'clock midnight, right? Something like that. So around that time, right, what happens, there is a lot of people gets in, and then they try to uh, see I mean what is going on, right? And another best example is this Hotstar, especially during this IPLs, or maybe even this World Cup series, right? Maybe if somebody, maybe any specific cricketer is playing the game, what happens? A lot of people, or maybe if the match goes really interesting, right? And somebody will say in the group, or it's like, oh, this person is hitting like anything. You have to watch it, right? So it is like highly variable, right? So during those times, right, how we have to keep the system in such a way that they can handle those many, maybe if the number of users are in thousands, the system should be in a position to handle everyone else. This will just go, everything go for a toss, right? And finally, it's the last type is the capacity. I think this is you to find the capacity of the application. Okay, fine. So far, any questions? So I'd like to take some questions before we move on to next one. Okay, I take that as a no. Fine. Okay, let's continue with the next one. Okay, so we are going to look at workflow. Okay, so what is a workflow? Workflow is just a series of user actions, right? So what does this mean, right? Series of user action. Let me. Okay, so there is an example. So let's look at it. So this example says like, so we're going to launch Wikipedia. Okay, and then search something. So I'm going to search Elon Musk, and then I'm just going to probably click that link. Okay, so let's try to work with this. I'm creating another tab here. Okay, so I have just launched Wikipedia. I'm going to search Elon Musk. Okay, and then I've clicked on Elon. So this is the end user. So I'm the end user, and whatever the actions that I am making in this application, um, is just simply called as user actions, right? And I've made a series of user actions, like one after the another. So I've launched Wikipedia, so that is one action. I've searched something, that is another. And then I've clicked on something else, right? Maybe this link, Elon Musk link. So this is my third action. From here, I can click maybe another link. Okay, so this has loaded. So I'm looking at this page called The Boring Company, which is founded by Elon Musk itself, right? So this is, so whatever the action that I am performing here, right? These are the user actions. Okay, these user actions together can be called as a workflow, and in performance testing, we will call this as a workflow itself. Okay, so yes, right. Let's continue. So user actions has a keyword. Okay, this is going to be called as a transaction. Okay, because there is something transacting between the client and the server. Okay, that is all it means. So user actions will be called as a transaction, and yeah, transaction is the keyword is used in performance testing. Okay, so from now on, we will not call this as a user action. This is going to be called as a transaction. All right, and so if we see this transaction is a group of requests that belongs to one user action. Okay, so let's look at the yesterday's recording. So if we see, these are the different transaction that was performed right during the recording. Okay, so if I just simply expand, so in under one transaction, okay, there could be one or more web pages. That is what we are seeing here. And under one web page, there could be one or more requests. So all these individual uh, elements are called as requests, and all of them together will make this launch transaction. Okay. Similarly, this goes with the other transaction also. Okay, so there is this click fish, and there is clicking on angel fish, clicking on item, clicking on home page, which will come back to the home page. Okay, so let me uh, just show you what we had done. So I just launched this application, clicking on fish, then clicking on angel fish, then clicking on this item, and then come back to home page. So these are the yeah, the transaction that was performed. Okay, so any queries so far? Okay, fine. Okay, so the next topic is this client and server architecture. I think it's we all know about this, right? So let's look at this example. So there is a client. So here client refers to the web browser or end user, and so on, and then there is a server. Okay, so client sends a request, and then server sends a response. Okay, so if you see, client sends a request, and then server responds to the client. Okay, so if I'm just looking for this google.com, so as a client I'm sending the request, and server will respond with the page. Okay, so uh, whatever the client sends is, again, it can be called as request and response, and the entire performance testing is all about between this request and response, at least from the scripting perspective, right? So we are sending a request, we are getting a response, and how this communication is established between these two entities matters, and how we, and there is a lot of enhancements related aspects as well, like there is correlation, parameterization, validation, error handling, exception handling, and so on and so forth, right? And we'll also be like learning a lot of performance standards, naming standards, and various other best practices, right? Which will keep the script or the entire project at high quality. Okay, fine. So next is, of course, as we have just seen, like it is all about the request and the response. Let's look at the components of a request. Okay, so in any request, okay, we will see these are the different components. Okay, that is, first component is the http method. HTTP method goes on like get, post, delete, put, option, trace, and so on. Okay. Out of this, get is the most dominant method that is that exists. Uh, so if you see, get alone will take up at least 98 percentage of the existing requests methods. Rest other this post and the other uh, methods. Okay. Next is the URL, which is the application URL or the endpoint URL. Okay. And then there is a headers. Headers are the series of attributes. It will have information like authorization, referral, user agent, and many other information. And then there is body. Okay. Out of these four components, the first three are mandatory. Without these three, the request is incomplete and it will not work. Right. The body can be optional, but at times there would be some parameters or some information that also gets passed along with the body. Okay. So like how we saw there are request components. Similarly, we also have something on the response components that we will see it shortly. So the first is this response code, or can be also be called as HTTP status code. So this will go like 100 series, 200 series, 300, 400, and 100. And we will discuss in detail on what is this response code and what does it mean and how we can infer uh, from the response code. Yes. And there is headers. So there is again headers associated from the response side as well. And there is body. Okay. So let's look at it. So this is the main request. Okay. So I'm just clicking this advanced option, and here what I'm seeing is the recorded request. If I click on this, so this is the request that got recorded from the yesterday session. Okay. So as we can see, it starts with uh, the HTTP method. Here it is get method, followed by there is a link, which is the URL, and below what we see is just some of the header attributes like accept language, user agent, encoding, etc. Right. So this is for the request. Let's also look at the response. Here what we see is here you can see 200. This is the one of the response code, and then there is a series of headers. This is again from the response side, and then there is a body. Okay, so this entire body makes up the web page along with this non-HTML or embedded resources, right? However, when we do any executions or testing, performance testing especially, usually these would be disabled, but it depends on the project. If they also insist that we need to benchmark this as well, then this has to be enabled. Okay, fine. So uh, any questions? Okay, I take that as a no. uh, Thank you all for joining. We will continue with the session. Let's catch up on Monday. Have a good weekend. Thank you.